Hello and welcome to the Lake Effect Podcast, sponsored by Accurate Glass Shot here today at the Sandbox Center in downtown Barrie. We're featuring Barrie and Muskoka businesses and fine home building and cottages is our focus. Today we have with us Trevor from Mediasuite.
Yes.
Long-time sort of partnership, and we were only doing this podcast because you directed us towards it, which is great.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I think that we have a history together on our website. I mean, what do you do? Tell me about your company and what your company does.
Website development. If you're like to distill it down to the fundamentals, yeah. And we did have, like many businesses, different sort of avenues and paths and growths and I wouldn't call it decline, but retractions. So a lot of stuff that we learned along the way. We started as a web development company. It was going on over 15 years ago. I think we had done the first iteration of the Accurate Glass site. If not, maybe it was the second, because Accurate has been around a really long time.
You were dealing with the previous ownership.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it was a redesign. I can't recall, but it was many, many, many years ago, like going over like 10 years ago, I think. We did that first one, and then you took ownership.
That's correct.
We redid it then, and I think we're on 2.0 even. Yeah. Accurate Glass together.
So if you get it, if anybody's viewing this and they want like a good sample of your work, okay, first of all, obviously go to Mediasuite. You're going to have, websites.
Our portfolio. Yeah.
If websites are what you do, where's the best place to show off your work here?
Our work, yeah. That would show the all of the projects. We've categorized them by year. So, a few launches so far in 2025.
Okay, right off the hop, if anybody's doing business in Barrie and Muskoka, as you go through this, you will recognize companies. There's lots of companies I recognize here. Different styles, different approaches, but you obviously have your style.
Mm-hmm.
There's our website has been viewed, let's say criticized or critiqued, would be the better word, by other people in this business.
Yeah.
I find that it's kind of sort of almost an artist sort of point of view, because everybody views their approach as the best.
Yep.
Okay. But as a business owner, I could say when listening objectively to the different methods and paths in which to arrive at a decent website, the way in which you approached it has issues for people that are trying to poke at it from the outside. Let's say SEO people come to mind. Okay. Not that they don't have a job to do. They do have a job to do. But there are things about your website that make it a little more difficult. But you've taken the time, and anybody who gets a chance, I mean, Mediasuite.ca, look them up, call Trevor, talk to him, and when you have the time, and you're not creating something, to explain why you do things the way you do, it makes sense. Do you want to give us the brief, just so that people understand why you choose to not use WordPress, basically?
No, and less about the framework. I like the question that you asked, because it poses a really interesting conversation that doesn't really take place a lot, which is, when the website's done, it's never really done. And I think a lot of businesses don't understand that as they're coming into the project, but they do eventually understand that over time. And the website, for I'm going to say any business, is kind of like the hub of all of their advertising initiatives. You advertise on radio, you advertise on billboards, all of the things you do to create outbound awareness. Most often that net result is that they come to the website. And that's where, at that point, they're either going to do deeper research or find your phone number to give you a ring or to fill out a form to get a quote. So the site is not necessarily an advertising. It's a marketing mechanism used to empower the other investments in advertisement to then bring in that lead. And with that said, it's never really done. It's like you plan to the best of your ability what you think you want and want to envision on the date of launch, and you roll that out. But it won't take long before feedback comes in from customers, from your own employees, to go, you know what, we should do this here. We should move that there. The call to action is not, visible enough. We should maybe try a bolder color on that thing. And then even when you employ those changes, there's new ideas. So it's almost, we often can refer to web development in like contracting. And it's really interesting. You could do a complete renovation project, and in the end, you'll look at it and go, that's beautiful. If I was to do this again, though, I would change that one thing. I would, you know what? Let's do this next year. Let's make this little upgrade.
Okay,
so we see that on sites too, where it's like it's a constant evolution, really.
So let's not stray from that thought. I agree with you 100%. The reason is in the end, anybody who's running a business, of any consequence in this region, has, in the end, you need to deliver value to the customer.
Yeah.
It's that old Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Price is what you pay, value is what you get.
Right.
Okay.
Beautiful.
In the end, what the customer needs is the value that they're seeking.
Yeah.
And you have to show them by your website or by whatever advertising method that you have that value. In the end, you have to show it by your work.
Yep.
Your work needs to represent exactly what the customer is looking for.
Yeah.
They'll come back again or recommend you. The value that they're looking for changes. And sometimes it can change very, very fast. I would say the last 3 years in my lifetime, of being in business and work and, living in this area, the last 3 years, the changes, have hit an accelerated point. And it's not necessarily just technology. It's the attitudes and the concerns of the people. So COVID is a great example of how all of a sudden everybody's concerns shifted from this to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They all of a sudden they needed home offices. All of a sudden they were staying home and they needed to, whatever they needed to do, or they needed to learn how to shop online because they didn't know how.
And then the businesses need to roll out curbside delivery.
Yes. I hate to use this word because it's so cliche, and I'm sure it's going to date, me in this podcast and everything else. But pivot, people used to call it other things. I should have a better word, but adaptation, and people used to call it, your business needs to be adaptive.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's pivot. It's just
or
like
being agile.
Or we'll spin on a dime.
Yeah.
They used to say small businesses are more flexible.
Yeah.
They can adjust, whatever it is. Okay. So even big businesses need to adjust. Now, there's been a leveling of the playing field as far as the difference between a big business and a small business from an outward customer point of view. Is you can have a multi-billion-dollar company, and you can have a company that's doing a few $100,000 a year, and the website can be pretty close.
Yes. Yeah. It is a platform, a media that allows small businesses to have an equal sort of utility to large businesses. Large businesses probably, or more experienced businesses even, will recognize that they do need to be agile. And that's one thing that a website is good for, is that as long as you chose a company to work with that has the ability to continue to work with you, rather than, a freelancer who maybe did a website one day and then you might not catch that freelancer down the road, to be able to update the site in the future is integral.
So how do you, I being one of your customers and having Accurate Glass Products as our website, let's see if we can pop that up here, right there, simple enough. Okay, so our website's a good example where the main framework of it was a specific request based upon what we'd seen, useful for other companies like ours.
Splash page,
Splash page is we have two sides, the fabrication and the installation. We wanted to make sure that the customers can immediately jump in this boat or that boat depending on what their needs are. Right. One is really a wholesale business and one is really a retail business focused just on this area. Okay. But as you go deeper, we like to keep our website updated, the right people on the page. The products sometimes change, our offerings change, and it needs to be updated. We think that you do a good job of doing that. How do you handle that with all of your customers? Give a description for anybody who's watching this of how you want to handle that. To fire you text at 3:00 in the morning, give you a big giant list in an email. Just as it comes up, find a method of communication. What's the expected turnaround time? What's your opinion of that? And I recognize before you answer that different customers have different needs.
Right. Yep. So, like you said, it varies in great detail. With new websites, we just do our very best at the time of launch to really deeply understand the business, what their objectives are, what their goals are, what their unique selling proposition is, and then we come up with the best strategy we can to deploy a website that's going to, seek and, realize those goals with success as best we can. But we know that 6 months later, needs are going to change. So with businesses like yourself, where we have like a service plan in place, we have the ability to be more agile with you on a regular basis. I like meetings to discuss change. Sometimes we get client-facing requests or client requests directly. Hey, can you make this change on the website? And if it's super basic, absolutely. But many times I prefer a conversation about why we want to make that change, because sometimes with our ability to know what technical capabilities are available, we'll be able to prescribe better solutions to realize the goal. So I want to know the goal moreover than like a technical request, because our team can come up with a better way to deploy a technical solution when we best understand the goal. So, and that can vary. If
right back to the beginning, the phrase that you were saying there, you've given us the flexibility to be contactable by phone, send me an email at a list, or we need to have an in-person meeting so we can like have a screen in front of us.
Right.
You and I have accomplished a lot when we just sat down for 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah. And I mean, you live in this area, I assume?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And this is, I don't know, there's a 2-camera view here, like, let's cheers. We're actually here in person. He's not in his living room, and I'm in my living room. This is real. Like he's
Google
here.
Meets.
Yes, exactly. So Trevor's not always available for that. Okay, but I appreciate the fact that sometimes you just need to do that. You have one screen in front of you.
Yes.
You point. You discuss something out, and bang! Now you have, a month's worth or 2 months worth of changes that need to be made, or adjustments to be made, instead of going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Yeah. The problem with digital communication to a certain degree is either too immediate or not immediate enough. Yeah. And never really duplicates in person. So the fact that you're available for that, I think, is a selling feature.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot more accomplished often. Well, they both have their give and take. So Google Meets and meeting virtually, it allows us to really bolt on this AI stuff, which is handy for like note taking, and I can go back to a meeting and ask questions. And that's very beneficial on a technical end. But I think there's a lot to be said about the things that aren't so obvious that take place in a personal meeting.
It's a good thing you're not a politician.
Yeah.
Because he just admitted to recording this conversation.
Yeah. Well, all of them. Yeah. But I don't know if I'm sure most people will recognize, and if we articulate it, then it becomes even more recognized. But when you meet with someone in person, a relationship is far greater built. Like on Google Meets, distraction is easy. Like you could be in a Google Meets and I'm meeting with you, and also my dog's over here doing some dumb shit, and I'm kind of like, you can get distracted. But when you meet with someone in person, I find the barriers go down. They become more honest with what they want. You can get on a
laundry.
level.
They're concentrating on the
and you're there, and you're there's an appreciation that we both carved out the time to actually sit together. It cements a lot of sort of, soft skills. It cements some things that are less technical but equally or greater in significance, that you'll be able to communicate to me truly what you want to accomplish. You'll recognize that I appreciate those goals, and then we can, in plain language, in whatever language that we typically use to communicate ourselves, we can be authentic and just talk about the task at hand, hash out some ideas, have some jokes, and then we get a little further along in, the overarching business, right? So both of them have benefits. But
I completely agree. Sometimes you calls for one or the other.
Yeah.
What are the trends with what's coming up? What's new? There was a time period where bots were kind of new, where AI to a certain degree, or like I guess you'd call them like internal search engines. Yeah. They're searching a website as opposed to just trying to click through menus. So what's coming next? What's coming next in that business to appeal to the customers?
Yeah. So overarching priority is still largely SEO. But yeah, AI, especially chatbots, is becoming an increasingly high request. But then you get mixed feedback on that too. I think most things are...
What is really the difference between a chatbot and just a search?
Well, an AI chatbot will allow someone to conveniently sort of parse through the website, and especially on sites that have like a great deal of content. So for example, a hospital website, a chatbot could be a very convenient mechanism to get answers rather than kind of, parsing through the navigational structure. It is different than a keyword search. A keyword search tool is going to allow you to list out all the content elements that are based on a keyword. But
so if you had to broadly define the two, and I'm kind of hearing from in layman's terms, is a keyword search versus like a key idea search. Like when you go to a chatbot, you're just giving an idea, and it because it's a language model,
right,
it figures out what it is that you're looking for, and then searches the website, it feeds it back to you. Where keyword search is only picking up the words.
Yes.
Not the idea behind the
Yes.
I got that?
Yeah, and arguably more convenient. Like I use it all the time. Just yesterday, my son asked, because we had this wood cutting board, and it's got a crack in it. And he said, why has it got a crack in it? I said, well, someone left it in the sink and it got wet. He's like, oh, so that's erosion. Like, no, that's not erosion. Erosion doesn't take place in wood. That's in, like, aggregates. So what causes it to crack in wood? I'm like, something to do with moisture, I guess. But hey, why don't we find out? So I could Google something like that, and I would get a list of results where then I could click on one that I feel serves my needs best and then research that information. That will take me more time. That's more work. So instead, we go ChatGPT. Why does wood crack when it gets wet? And then we just sat and listened. At that point, we just sat and listened, and AI just explains to us exactly how the expansion and contraction of wood when it gets wet and when it dries, and there's different densities of wood, and they dry at different rates and all kinds of stuff. And we were being educated within seconds. So it's far more convenient. So you can imagine a scenario where we plug in an AI chatbot on a website. It provides a more convenient mechanism for the AI to do the thinking, to parse through the data and provide a readable answer. Not like, here's a bunch, like basically a keyword search, and Google's going to provide you with a convenient access to resources to self-educate, whereas the AI will basically do the work of parsing through that information and then provide you an explanation.
Okay, I could see the use in that. Somebody would go to our website instead of sort of going through gallery upon gallery of pictures, trying to get inspiration.
Yep.
Give a description, a general description. I have a house. It's a 4-bedroom house. It's a 4-bath house.
Yep.
The master bath needs to be the nicest one. I was thinking something that goes to the ceiling in brass. What have you got?
Exactly.
And then it's going to go through the website. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how much and when?
yeah. No, it's like, and it's exactly that. In a scenario that I could imagine, I would say, like, I've bought a house that I'm looking to flip. I understand that glass showers can increase the value of my home, but is it important that I use the thickest glass, or can I use a more economical solution because this is a flip home and I'm trying to maximize my potential without decreasing, or compromising the quality? That would be a question that AI would just tell me the answer based on the data that you program into it from the website.
Yeah, I guess, so what's the difference between, so I could go to, I use Llama quite often.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just because it's quick and easy.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, I mean, you have to download it, pay for it, but, Facebook makes it very easy to use Llama.
Right. Yeah.
Or Meta, whatever it's
Yeah.
called. Okay, so if you put that question, you'll get an answer, but knowing glass as well as I do, I know sometimes I read the answer, I'm like, that's not, that's I could see how you would arrive at that conclusion, but it's not the right answer.
It's not that simple.
Yeah. So on a website chatbot, are you tapping into the general knowledge of whatever background, just say it's ChatGPT or whatever you're using for AI, or are you able to make it the answers what you want?
That's where there's options. There's different software. So we wouldn't be programming the software solutions. We would do the work of implementing whatever solution that you land upon into the site. But there's various options. You can use some that, exactly, just use ChatGPT to provide, the answers that are already baked into that database, I'll call it. Others, you can program it. So you go through the work of programming it to make sure that it's providing answers that agree with the way that you think. There's others that can provide sort of a surface level information and then say, for more detailed answers to this, we recommend that you contact one of our specialists, and here's the phone number and here's the email address, right? So they're kind of engineered to be a lead gen. It's like, I will give you a roundabout answer, but then you need to talk to someone.
As much as we think things have changed, things really, if you're talking about a very specific subject, it kind of started off when I was very young. Do you remember Choose Your Own Adventure books?
Yeah.
Okay, there's Choose Your Own Adventure books. And then for me, where that led to is programming in basic V2, right? Yeah. Or 64.
Yeah.
Right? And so I wrote a game where you made choices, and based on the choices, they would go to the whatever string, choice you made. And I guess the problem with that, of course, is you were limited to those pathways, and there was no combination of pathways.
Right.
Where ChatGPT or AI backing up a chatbot on a website allows you to tap into that larger sort of thinking base.
Yep.
But it does sometimes get outside of. Sometimes an answer's wrong. No matter what you do, it's going to answer wrong from time.
Yeah, and a good chatbot solution will allow you to decide where those walls are. So it's like a video game, like you said. So I don't know. I remember some games where basically you're in a world and you can just cruise around. There's eventually an end to the world, like Tony Hawk Skate. You can skate around the town, and I'm like, I wonder what happens if I just head down that street forever. Where will I go? eventually you just hit a wall, and they're like the virtual end, right?
In that world, like you can sail off the end of the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the different solutions will have different areas of what that bubble, where that bubble ends, I suppose.
Okay, so let's say that's definitely part of the trend. That's one of the trends. What are some other stuff? What do you see in the distant future, or what other stuff is popular other than that?
One thing I've seen change over, because we've had the privilege of doing this for decades, and we've launched, I'm going to say, over 600 sites now. There used to be a time where a site would last, 6-7 years. We're seeing people, 4 or 5 years before redevelopment, sometimes even shorter spans, because consumer behavior, consumer expectations, technical abilities, all kinds of things like that are changing. A huge emphasis is placed on a strong user interface design. It is like completely unacceptable now if a business has a website that's difficult to navigate. So consumer pressure has changed, and that's more of a social thing, right? Like you can't have a website that's difficult to navigate. You can't have a website that's not mobile friendly. Like these things are wildly obvious, but there's still businesses out there that don't have like a good mobile experience, and really paying attention during your Q&A your quality that the mobile has been tested, as well as tablet, and everything should be responsive now. So that's not new, but that the pressure for that is now like without question kind of thing. New things, like many industries, some of it's just a matter of opinion. I'm of the opinion that quality content is key, which is why I like to work with guys like Kale at CGF Media for video work. I always propose that businesses consider like video to support their message, especially if that message is a little bit lengthy and difficult to understand. If it's not,
I think here we are right now doing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes people want just to scrape of the surface.
Yeah.
And sometimes they really want to go deep.
Yep.
What I'm finding is that there's not, the middle ground keeps kind of disappearing in all respects.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So, somebody wants to know about showers. Where can I get a shower? I need a solution. Mm-hmm. I need my GC to just have somebody who's going to show up. Bing, bang, boom. I search. There we go. Okay, Accurate Glass comes up in the top 3 or 4 from an SEO standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
They must be credible because they have enough money to spend on SEO to show up in the top 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about SEO in the last year, and I'd say that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You could spend a lot of money and still not end up in the right place.
Yeah, especially in highly competitive markets, right?
Correct. And then what happens is you it's almost like a gas pedal, thing. Like as soon as you let off the gas pedal, somebody else presses the gas pedal.
Right.
Now they're
Yeah.
And the size of the company and the capability of the company is related to that, but it's not a direct relation.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
SEO is a funny thing, which is why
it is.
Yeah. And the thing is, SEO is also dependent upon let's say the judges or adjudicators of what is valid and what is not valid, and those people reside in the halls of Google.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Or Bing if you're Binging stuff.
Yeah.
Do you Bing shit? Dude,
I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't get used to too much, but yeah. Yeah. One thing on the note of like trends that businesses should consider is authenticity. I think is huge now, and it's really cool that you can have different language models on a site. So like the wording that you use, it's really cool when a website uses language that sort of speaks to the same tone that the business does, like whatever their brand voice is, that is depicted on the site. Authenticity for photographies. I remember like we did a bunch of dentist sites years and years and years ago, and we just go to like 123RF, our stock photography site, and we just grab all the images from there because they were of good quality, the resolution was strong, they were, nice
people
photos.
want that anymore.
But they don't want that anymore. No, you need
run
like
from that actually.
Photos of that clinic, photos of those doctors, of those dental hygienists. You need authentic photography, and because we see it more often, it's now the consumer expectation. And if I see a site that's just riddled with stock photography, it's diminishing the value of the business. And it's especially odd if like the business actually has an attractive office and has stuff to share. Like, why would you resort to stock photography? On the SEO point that you'd mentioned, it's a forever changing thing. I always refer it to almost fitness in the sense of like, the nice thing about it is if you put the work in and you are in position, you took a week off, you're not going to lose it all. But if you take a month off, you're going to start to feel it a little bit. And if you just let it go altogether, you're going to lose it, right? Because everyone else is competing for that space, right?
Yeah, it also depends on where your business is at. I mean, if you're really, really good at what you do, and you have a reputation, and sometimes, I mean, some of our business, Accurate Glass, we can put splashy pictures, we can participate in the social media exercise, but in the end, we need to produce a good product.
Yep.
We need to send somebody to your house or cottage that knows what they're doing really in depth, has a lot of experience.
Yeah.
They need to be able to interpret, what to do. And then somebody else needs to show up, or sometimes the same person that shows up to execute it physically and to eventually have that beautiful picture, which is now postable and shareable and Instagrammable and everything else, right? We're still in a world, or our business anyway, is still in a world when it comes to homes and cottages, where you need to do the work and you need to do work properly. And then on top of that, as to your point, you need to let people know that you're doing it properly, and you need to show people proof that you're doing it properly. And digital proof seems to be where it's at right now.
Yeah,
right.
And then people that are buying into what you're selling, they want to have access to that information because they're interested. They're making an investment into your product or service. They want to have access to that by way of like your Instagram or your website. You mentioned earlier with SEO, a lot of people will just chalk it up to, oh, this is Google's mysterious algorithm and it's a situation beyond their control. They'll hire potentially like an SEO company to do SEO work, and they think it's outside of their control to really, get the ranking up. I would argue that that's not entirely true. The work is sometimes mystical, like as far as like a technical end item. But if you really distill it down to like Google's job is to provide a really good search engine at the end of the day. They're providing a search engine that gives you the best, most accurate results to whatever it is you're searching for. They don't have a person that systematically goes through the city of Barrie and looks for the best glass companies, right? Or the best glass manufacturers or shower glass installers. There's not a person making those things. They're subject to use algorithms and data points to find these things. So their goal is to provide the most valuable results. How can you do that? You have to look at measurements like demand, like are other people looking for this business? Credibility, how long has this business been online? And reliability of the information, is it accurate, right? So they can do that through mechanisms like, well, we have Google Analytics on your site, for example, and so they know exactly how many people have been to the site. They know.
As a customer of yours, I have appreciated, in all the things that are going on every day, I've appreciated like opening the report and just glancing at it for a second or two and thinking to myself, okay, how much business do we have? Are things getting busier? Oh, look, the number of phone calls that came through the website is increased, and so is our business. Like drawing that correlation, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is worth mentioning that we went through an exercise, and we probably will again with SEO.
Yeah.
I found there was value in it.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about how you can't just pay money and control it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? You can't. You can pay money. And then the control is kind of like a wild bull ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And because you don't know what your competitors are going to do and are doing at the same time to try and get that same result.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think businesses don't know that there's a lot more of search engine optimization in their control than they realize. So if we go back to what I said about credibility, reliability, as far as like Google's objectives to provide the best results. So traffic on the site is a good measurement of credibility. If a lot of people are going to this website, then there must be a good resource on glass, right? Now, okay, got a lot of numbers. That's one checkbox. Are those numbers sticking around? What's the time on page? Oh, wow. Okay, these people are spending on average 4 or 5 minutes on the website. Therefore, they must be liking what they're seeing. This is just data. A lot of people spending a lot of time. So you're going to rank well because Google's already recognized through analytics there's a lot of people on this website and they're spending a good deal of time. And do they come back? And has this website been around? Like your domain name, and if you go to like easywhois.com and you put in accurate Ask Glass Products and put in that URL, you'll see the date it was registered, which is many, 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 many years ago. So this website has been around a long time. It was updated as early as 48 hours ago. It has a ton of people visiting the website, and they spend a good amount of time. So that's going to help your ranking. So even shows like this podcast, where you say, that's not an SEO initiative. It absolutely is. We're creating content that goes on the website that everyone on the show is going to visit. Like every visitor is going to go, and I'm probably going to share with people that I know, and they're going to go to your website and watch it. They're going to, each of those IP addresses are going to spend, 5, 6, 7 minutes on the site more. That's an SEO.
Okay, I have a challenge for you.
Yeah.
I have a challenge direct challenge with him as my witness.
Yeah.
Okay. And don't worry, there's no ice buckets involved here. Okay. And don't press that button. Okay. We have been doing the podcast kind of as an experiment.
Yeah.
And the podcast is, we're non-political. We're not looking for, easy views by, featuring, the top 10 things that, like a car crash or something that gets lots of views. Okay.
Yeah.
We want people to see the content for what it is, for the information, who are seeking the information. How quickly can you get your podcast with you as the guest to exceed the number of views of the top podcasts that we've filmed thus far?
Oh, okay. So if I wanted this episode to have a higher view count,
if you can show me how, if you can get this, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Play with that thumbnail.
Yeah.
Put whatever you need to on that thumbnail, as long as it's not totally distasteful.
Yeah.
Or gets us banned or something like that. Okay, don't go crazy with it, but put whatever thumbnail you need to, whatever's going to attract that first click, whatever's going to get somebody to watch it. I really, the people that you're trying to appeal to, I would think are your customers.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would hope that I would be able to use this podcast as an example for other business owners in Barrie and Muskoka who could promote their businesses.
Yeah.
Okay. And really it's about the hardcore information.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do another podcast at some point that's Accurate Glass, just about selecting glass.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody who you're going to direct here is somebody who's looking to do a website and wants to understand what it's like to start from a certain point and reach whatever point you want them to reach, or whatever their objectives are for media.
Right.
Okay. I'm sure Mediasuite, it's not called Media Now or Media Overnight or something. It's Mediasuite, I assume, because you're saying, come to us and we'll help. Maybe we don't provide all of the services, but our core, like you said, is website.
Yeah.
And then here's the other things that you can do to help promote that website.
Right.
And a testimonial, this is me listening to you doing this.
Yeah. Right.
And it has brought us business.
Yes.
And it had brought us credibility. Yeah. And people can go online and they can listen to the people that work at Accurate Glass, not just myself. We've had other people on and say, hey, I want to work with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Not only that, I've had one person on the show who was so enthusiastic and so, an expert in his field, and that people have gone to him and said, they just saw the podcast. I just want to work with that guy.
Yeah.
It's just so
he was hyped up. Yeah.
He's a great guy from Mac Mechanical. And just did, if you watch the Mac Mechanical podcast, he just did such a good job just being positive. And it's like, hey, I got to make a bunch of choices for my cottage. Or I think the people who gave me that feedback were building a cottage. And they're like, I got to deal with a bunch of very crusty people, and that guy looks like he's just going to make my day brighter.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's talking about. He provides a good service, and he's backed by a good company.
Yeah. And people could see the passion that he had for the product that he's selling, right?
Correct.
I think, from, again, years and years of business, anytime I've ever focused on the money, the business does okay. Not so, it's just stale. But anytime we always put the focus on providing, a valuable service, and you get stoked about, actually launching a great site that's going to impact the business, and if that becomes, what's in your crosshairs is actually doing the best job and, making that person happy and realizing their goals, that is when business accelerates across the board. So him on that show, you could probably feel that. At the end of the day, what he was doing was really fulfilling him. And that fulfillment is then I want to work with him.
Yeah, he's going to bring some kind of value.
Yeah.
So back to the fact that website will live for a long time period and establishes the credibility, and that credibility gets transmitted to searchability.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the whole core and foundation of our business of Accurate Glass.
Yeah.
How Accurate Glass got started is Sean Monahan bought a company called Lancer Glass, which phone number was the same phone number as our phone number today. Because back then it was about phone numbers. There was no websites, right?
Yeah.
So it was yellow pages and that kind of stuff.
Right.
705-722-6767. If you called that number from now in 2025 all the way back to 1969, the person who picked up the phone always wanted to help you solve your glass problems.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's the longevity there from 1969 to 1920.
The vision never changed.
2025.
Yeah.
Yes, is call this number, we'll solve your glass problems. And if we can't solve it, we'll recommend somebody who can.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is the same thing, the website, okay? If you go to, I mean, do you have a customer you want to mention besides Accurate Glass somebody could look at as an example?
Complete Windows and Doors. We did a launch last fall for Winging It, which is a chain of wing restaurants. I really like the way that site turned out. We just launched Berry Trim and Molding. That project's really cool.
Lee was on the podcast. So if anybody's watching this and they're interested in Berry Trim, go to the website. Yeah. I'm hoping we should talk. That's one thing you can do to help is talk to Lee. Yeah. And if you're helping him with his website, is plug in his podcast into the website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yes, please.
Time on page, more people to go there.
Exactly.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah, and he did a great interview. It was one of the earliest interviews, and he handled it so well. And the idea was to bring credibility to his business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's integral that every guest on this show that is a business owner, that they get that. Like they go to your YouTube channel and they embed that video on their site. Most businesses have like a news section or a blog section or something like that. Get that video on their own website. They need to post it on social that they were on an episode, and
your customers will benefit from it.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So lastly, what is your so back to the longevity thing is what is the website that you have, in your group of customers that's been online the longest?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Who wouldn't mind you mentioning them in a podcast?
No one would mind, of course. We'd have to scroll down to like whatever year that was. But one that comes to mind is Jarlette Health Services. We've been in discussions with them about a redesign, but the site that you see there now, which is about 5 or 6 years old, is probably the third one we've done. So that site we did, decades ago. So there's the original version of that site.
So these things, some of these websites have you've been able to go to their URL for like forever.
Yeah, it's a chain of 18 long-term care facilities. So I don't know what the date was on this one, but yeah. So that site, look at how old it looks. At the time, it was cutting edge. Yeah. But and a lot of people we've had the privilege of working with them year over year over year.
There's a metals company I think you had.
ABA.
Is it ABA?
ABA is a funny one. So we've developed one site for ABA, and if you go to it, it's not mobile friendly because at the time there was not mobile websites. It's that old. And I talk to them all the time, like, guys, we have to do this, and they're like, we're busy, we're fine.
Well, that's it. Sometimes it's just like my father-in-law had a very classic business. I mean, at one point it was like 12 trucks or something. Yeah. He was out in Alberta. Neil's Welding. Yeah. And if you look at his logo, it's like a atypical 1950s sketch drawing. Yeah. And he just never changed it, and it just worked.
Right.
Yeah. It just worked. People, it's a recognizable thing, right?
And that's, I guess, the way they see it. It's not broken. It works. They're busy, so they're happy. But yeah, it's one that definitely could use a refresh. I think that site is 15 years old. Like it's super, super old. Yeah.
Okay, well, back to how to contact you. So it's pretty easy. Mediasuite, Trevor Howard.
Yep. Mediasuite.ca.
Mediasuite.ca. There's a contact on the what's a phone number people can call if they need to?
249-888-9690. Or email us info@mediasuite.ca.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing the podcast.
Thank you.
The challenge is out to you.
Sounds good.
Yeah, check those. If Views is going to bring you business, but I think Views is part of it. Right?
So that'll be the goal, to get this one to have a higher viewer count than others. I'm going to do another one though later, right? So we can come up with. Because what I would do is
every guest I've said, there's always a second chance.
Okay.
As long as I can afford to keep, careless, doing second chances.
Yeah. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you very much for watching Lake Effect Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, dude.